Welcome to the Around the Block podcast presented by PrepVolleyball.com. We're your hosts, Jimmy Pompeo and Sam Heyman, here to give you the inside scoop on all things prep. Welcome back to Around the Block with Jimmy and Sam. Today, we're talking about player archetypes. So if you saw our coach archetype episode, what kind of coach are you? This is going to be something similar, but with players. Different types of players and different types of positions. Different strokes for different folks.
What's up, everybody?
Sam is here.
I didn't get balloons on my peace sign today.
Not a balloon day, I guess.
Gonna have to hit it on the outro.
Yes, sir. All right,
Yes,
so as usual, use promo code podcast to save 25% on your new PrepVolleyball.com subscription. Also, if you have any, do that. If you have any feedback for us as to what you like about the podcast, what you don't like, what you want to hear about in the future, shoot us an email at editor@PrepVolleyball.com. Always happy to get some feedback, but don't be a jerk.
Constructive criticism is something we appreciate.
Yeah. So, housekeeping for today. By the time this one comes out, we will have the latest edition of the class of 2026 recruiting class rankings after our big signing day extravaganza.
Big time. We're celebrating the class of 2025, getting ink on the paper, signing their institutional agreements, which we're super excited about. Those are going to be, the first wave will actually be dropping in just a little bit from when we're recording right now. So be sure to check that out and continue the celebration with the class of 2025 getting their verbal commitments locked in. We're super excited for them.
Yes, we are. Big time stuff going on. The X-Files this week is all about milestones, which we've been featuring on the website for a couple of weeks now. So I guess my question, and you can kind of help me out with this, Sam.
Yes.
What does it say about players and programs when they have athletes who put up incredible season and career numbers?
Well, one of the things that I think I've been noticing a lot as I've been kind of diving in and reading up on a lot of these athletes who've been creating some history for themselves and for their programs, is that a lot of these statistics are kind of locked behind some of the institutional I wouldn't say restrictions, but some of the institutional, kind of thresholds that their schools have them under. So, for example, in Florida, 1,500 career assists over a 4-year varsity period is a pretty impressive number because they're only playing about 25-ish to 30 matches a year. Max 30 if you're running all the way to the state championship. So 1,500 in Florida looks a little bit different than 1,500 in like Texas or Mississippi or Alabama, where they're playing upwards of 50 matches a year for some of these teams. So I think the contextualization of them certainly is something that I think comes into play for sure. So part of me says it depends on what it is, and more of it is where it is at this point. So I think we take certain things with a grain of salt. Also, some of the individual milestones that come up on a per season basis, that comes into play. But we're always super impressed when first years and sophomores are hitting big time career milestones right out of the gate, for sure.
Yeah, they're like rookie quarterbacks starting right off the bat.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, I agree with you too in regards to like where these players are playing, how many games they're playing, because obviously it's impressive if you hit some kind of milestone, whether it's 1,000 kills, 1,000 digs, 1,000 assists, but it adds another layer when you're playing almost half as many matches in your state as other states are playing.
Absolutely. So I do think that's why looking at things on a per set basis is important, because I think we get a lot of baseline from that data. Certain things like hitting percentage, those are the kinds of things that are impacted by the amount of volume that you get, but you can only work within the body of work that you have. So, we can't kill anybody for not having the opportunity to play 45 matches if they can only play 25 or 30. So a lot of that comes into play as well, where you take into some of that per set data to kind of dig through and sift through. So certain things like if you're averaging 4 kills a set, that's pretty darn good at whatever level you're playing at. If you're in double-digit assists per set, pretty darn good. If you're averaging double-digit digs a match, that's really solid work, especially if you're in a state that's only playing best 2 out of 3, which I think in trivia last week we covered which states those were, and I think I only remember like 2 of them. So
well, one is obvious because it's the one we talk about all the time that needs to change.
It does, and it was was Kansas the other one?
Kansas, and I believe it's Illinois or Missouri, one or the other.
Yeah. No, you're right. No,
Kansas and Missouri.
No, it's Illinois.
No, it is Illinois.
Yeah, because that was super surprising. Anyway. So I think we saw a couple of players reach some pretty impressive milestones. Obviously, we don't get to see everybody, but the ones that came across our desk were pretty impressive. So it's definitely one of those things where I think for me, seeing the freshmen and the sophomores reach some of these plateaus early in their careers is super impressive. And I think it speaks to the depth of athletic talent and development that's in the game right now. So those are the kinds of things that I kind of get jazzed for personally.
Yeah, I do too. But in the back of my mind, when I see an underclassman hitting big numbers, there's always this like odd little concern that's just like, you're not going to burn that kid out, are you?
I guess it depends on the position. Like if it's a libero or a setter, probably less so. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. You look at someone. You look at like a Henley Anderson, who was, I think her sophomore year she took like 1,400 swings or something like that. That might be too big of a number. I don't have her stats in front of me, but she accounted for, I think, almost 40% of Dripping Springs offense and stuff like that, and hasn't slowed her down.
For now, yeah.
For now,
hopefully it never does. But I always have, as like a former coach in the back of my mind, I'm like, why are you giving them the ball so much? Like,
well, I mean, don't you think that kind of leads into the bigger conversation that our sport is having, and I've certainly had this year. Traveling the country, going to all these events and chatting with coaches and club directors and all these folks. It's the calendar is just too long, especially at the elite level, at that top end level where we're talking about like the top 1 to 5% of the country that's in the mix for Team USA development, or if they're getting deployed on one of the youth teams, or if they're playing deep into the summer going to nationals, and then they have all of their collegiate aspirations, so they have to go to camp and they have to go on visits and stuff like that. Like, I agree with you. I think there's a fine line, and I think the data supports that we're seeing a lot more overuse and burnout injuries coming into play, and 15, 16, 17-year-olds having massive reconstructive surgeries on their knees and elbows, or I should say shoulders more, but I guess sometimes elbows too. So no, I don't think that's an unfounded concern by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, I mean, I love seeing how these big numbers they put up, but I'm always thinking like, that's a lot of volleyball.
Yeah, it is. But I think kids are tough. And I think we as old people forget that, we were tough once too. We're kind of just, old.
Yeah, I am not tough. I'm tender.
That's it. Time marches on, but the good news is that I think thankfully we're in an age now with regards to sports medicine. We've never had more information in front of us and more technological advances to make sure that, these kids are ready to play and they can handle that weight of that frequency. And we have more people in the conversation and communicating about mental health. So I think while there are a lot of concerns and risks, I think we've also developed a space where kids aren't necessarily as concerned about speaking up and saying, like, hey, I'm burned out. Like, I'm not doing this. We see it every year. All of a sudden someone reaches out and say, hey, so-and-so's not committed here anymore. They are not playing volleyball anymore. Or we see somebody take a year off of club or a year off of high school ball. And then they come back to it. Matt Anderson, one of the best players in the world, one of the most fundamental foundational pieces from Team USA men's. He took a sabbatical for a little while from playing, came back rejuvenated, and he's still playing. So it's one of those things where it is an individual. I think it's an individual case basis, and not everyone's going to have the same level of tolerance for all that as somebody else. So I think it's keeping a space that allows people to be comfortable with the decisions that they make in that sense, and kind of let everybody do what they're going to do, because there's no shortage of players in the game right now. So if it's not for you, that's okay. There's a place for you. It just might not be up there. It might just be like here, which is fine.
Totally fine. Speaking of places for you, it's time for Sam's Adventures in Adult Volleyball. Let's go. Weekly recap.
Well, first part of the recap is a little bit of an embarrassing one, because at time of recording last week, I didn't get to play because I didn't realize this, but the league only runs every other week. So it's kind of a bummer. I was looking for a little bit more frequency, but it's okay. So we played on Monday, and we had a substitute. As you start to play adult volleyball, you'll notice that people have lives and they do other things, and you know.
No.
I know, it's crazy. So we had a substitute who I never met, but seemed like a nice guy, and he jumped in there, and but it was good. We our first game was over in probably 25 minutes total between two sets. We played a group that was a little ragtag, and nice guys. They had one kid who could hit off of a slide approach pretty well, burned me once really good, actually, because I was on the so we play. Let me see if I can do it. That's not gonna. It's like 2-2, right? So it's quads. So we just have the pins, and then you kind of swing and swing off the net to cover deep. So I came off, and I just didn't stick to the sideline, and he sliced one into the deep corner, and I let it go because I thought it was going wide, but it was in by a pretty considerable amount. So that wasn't ideal. But we cleaned them up, and then we played a team that had a couple of guys who could swing, and we won those two sets because we served better, and we left the defenses at home. I don't think anybody blocked a single. I don't think anybody blocked a single ball in the two sets we played in our second match. I do not present a huge block, so when I get blocks, it feels good, and when I don't, I'm just apologizing all the time because I'm not big, but still a crafty hitter. Still find some spots. Second match was a little bit tougher, actually. Had to sweat a little bit, which, good and bad. Good little run of cardio. But so far the struggle bus is off to a 4-0, 8-0 start, and we got a couple more weeks here, and we're just gonna keep on cruising. But I'm looking for more opportunities to play, and I've gotten wind of a couple of higher level teams that I'm going to look into try and make my way into, but we'll see. Time will tell.
Oh man, somebody sign this man.
Not to hit. Holy smokes. Let me just play defense. Can still do that. That's about it.
Yeah, buddy. Like riding a bike.
Yeah. The jumping part is also going surprisingly well. But math just is not on my side when the blockers across them, you're going to be like 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", and up. So
they have height privilege.
It is. It's a real problem in our game.
Something we really need to address in our game is height privilege. So
one day,
volleyball. There's always going to be that. It's volleyball.
I don't know if there's a sport where being short helps you, to be honest.
Maybe running back, football. You can fit tighter holes.
Slip
okay.
The
defenders.
You tell that to Derrick Henry.
Okay, but Saquon's doing really well this season. He's what, like 5'8"? 5'9"?
Hold on, I'm gonna look it up because I'm pretty sure he's probably closer to like 6'1", 6'2".
Okay. I'm trying to think. There used to be a teeny tiny little running back that was so good, and he was like 5'5", 5'6". In fact, there's somebody on a roster right now. I forgot where they played, but he's like super small.
Darren Sproles, I think, is the one you're thinking of.
Sproles, yeah. He played for the Eagles too.
Yeah, he did. I think he really popped with the Saints. Saquon's 6 foot.
Okay.
He's 6 foot.
That's not much shorter than you, not much taller than you, if at all.
Yeah, but he power cleans like 500 pounds.
I got another sport where it's good to be short.
Oh,
horse racing, jockeys.
Oh, yeah, facts.
They gotta be light, gotta be short, keep the weight down.
Yeah, wrestling too, I think.
Yeah, I never really thought about height in regards to wrestling.
So my grandpa wrestled in high school, and he said that the hardest matchup that he had, because I think he wrestled in like the 150, 160 range, but he said you'd get guys who were that weight, but they'd be like 6'1", 6'2", and so they're just coming at you with angles.
Gangly arms, like a spider trying to wrap its arms around you.
And you can't wrap them up. So
I can't wrap them up. There's a guy with gangly arms.
So I think, it's okay. I didn't do myself any favors picking volleyball to pursue long term because it's, high school was fine for the most part, but yeah, I got to college and I was like, oh, these dudes are all really tall. And my hitting career was over pretty quickly. But it was a blessing because I learned how to pass better and learned how to ball control and, so I'm thankful for that.
Dynamic, flexible.
Yeah, and then Don made me set.
You gotta do what you gotta do for the Cougs.
You gotta do what you gotta do for the team. Oh, did they win last night?
I don't know.
They had first round of NJAX, yeah.
I know they ended the regular season with like a 5-set loss to Montclair State, which was a heartbreaker.
Oh, did they really?
I don't know how much confidence that builds.
Montclair State's getting better.
They got a good staff over there.
Yeah. They've had a couple of really good coaches go through there, if I'm not mistaken.
I think Eddie's still there. He's been the coach for a while now. Anyway, on to today's topic, which is player types. So these are those players that encompass some of the specific traits that you see from a position. Kind of like your typical type of player, like archetypes for those positions.
We're stereotyping.
Again, yeah, but for fun reasons, but for fun and positive reasons. There should be another term for that.
Kane lost in 4.
To
Rowan.
Woof.
Yeah, Glassboro State, tough. Yeah. That's okay. Congrats to Coach Perkins and the Cougars. Always love you guys.
Go Cougs.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yes. So some of the, I would say these are some of the things that we, from our coaching time and our time analyzing players, have kind of aggregated and seen some consistencies and similarities and things that other coaches have said are very important to them when they're recruiting the position. Would you agree with that, sir?
Absolutely.
Tight.
Yeah. So we're going to start with the outside hitters. I got a couple kind of archetypes for that. The first one we've talked about all the time on the website. The Swiss Army knife.
Oh yeah. You got to do it all.
Yep. Pass, serve, hit, dig, block, and does all of it well from the front and the back row.
Yeah. If you're going to be on the floor for 6 rotations and you're going to be entrusted to handle what generally is a pretty large share of the serve receiver duties, you have to be good at everything. And if you're not, then the other team will find a way to target you, either whether it's in serve receive or they'll find a way to put the ball on you in the attack. and or find ways to make sure the ball gets funneled to you on if in transition chances. So I think it's a lot of responsibility, but it's one that I think we see coaches kind of prioritize at a very, very high level for their program, pretty much across the board, I would say.
Yeah, I feel like the Swiss Army knife's like your go-to player.
Yeah.
Like high pressure, crunch time, you need a clutch kill, you're going to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of like like a shooting guard in basketball, or I'm trying to think of something. Or like a key receiver in football is probably the closest one, because you have the ability to get them the ball in any situation because they'll make a play, right? I can't recall how many times I've said that on a tough broken play where the ball just gets tossed to somebody. It's like, just go make a play. Just go
make a volleyball move.
Make a volley, or as a hitter, you're able to take a broken play that your team maybe scrapped up in transition. Somebody picked up a great dig and you're out of system. Finding a way to shift the momentum of the point or the leverage of the point back to your side. So that may not be scoring directly. That may be putting a tough ball on the center to put the other team in an out of system situation, or making a defender move to make a scramble play that then gets you guys a free ball back. Those are the kinds of things that I think in terms of the mental game, aside from all of the physical things that we've talked about, that's the kind of stuff that I think separates some of those Swiss Army knife players, those really gritty six rotation players. I think that's what separates them in this category in particular.
Yes. And so our next one for the outside is kind of, I wouldn't say the opposite, but it's more unsung than the Swiss Army knife. It's the battery.
Sure.
So the battery is the engine of the team, continually providing energy through strong defensive play and consistent attacking. They may not score with the highest efficiency, but they're low error attackers that score on high percentage shots.
Sure. You're 0-2, 0-3, someone who comes in and has a lot of consistency, right? Again, we talk about make a play. Well, make a play doesn't always mean score.
Right.
And I think those batteries, and it's interesting because battery, you can kind of look at it like they're a consistent source of energy, but battery is also like a pairing and a tandem, and there's two outside hitters on the floor. And so odds that you have that your team has two shut down, high efficiency, high scoring outsides is a little more rare at most levels. Not everyone can be at Grand Oaks and have Samara Coleman and Hallie Thompson on their roster. Pretty darn good, or your Sacred Heart Academies, right? With Anna Powell and man, 3 for 4 is pretty good. And I'm sorry to the other young lady that I'm forgetting, but they had another outside who was really solid. And don't kill me, but you can email editor and remind me who you are. So it's I think personally that when you look at and evaluate teams, your 0-1, your high volume outside hitter, that Swiss Army knife kid that we've been talking about, they probably are the one that jumps off the page. But you can tell a lot about the depth of a team by their 0-2, their 0-3, some of that depth. So this, I think that this is just as important to a team's success as that, your consistent point scores.
Yeah, and sometimes like when we're watching matches at events, if the match is just starting, I won't even look at the front row. I want to see who's in the back row. I want to see who's passing first, playing defense first, and a lot of the times that's the battery.
Yep. Especially early in the morning. Mm-hmm. Like, how do you get out of bed? Or like on day 2 or day 3, like what's your response to a tough day? What's your response to a loss? Like, I think that this player oftentimes has that, a little bit, I should say they have that well managed. within themselves, and then they're able to kind of spread that vibe around to their teammates and, you know, pick people up.
Yeah.
Very, very valuable in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, if you have both of those, the Swiss Army knife and the battery on the floor, you should be good for the most part.
A coach that I respect very much said that, you know, made the remark that, you know, outside hitters win you championships, and because you need to score points. And so if you can have a batter, you know, a tandem on the pin, on the left pin, your strong outlet, all that, like, you can have good things go for you. So
Yes, sir.
I would agree with that.
So moving on to the right side hitters, we got our first one, which is the lockdown blocker.
Ooh.
So this is kind of like the cornerback of the volleyball world, usually assigned to the team's best outside. Their job and their passion is locking down hitters at the net. They usually have height and speed, though not always the most technically sound. They're extremely athletic, and they love shutting down hitters.
You can't teach height. We kind of touched on that already today, but you know, the blocking technique, I think, is something that is a very fine-tuned skill to be able to develop consistently, especially at a time in the game when it seems like we're so hyper focused on the attacking component of things because we need to score points. I'm not saying that coaches don't find it valuable to teach blocking. However, it does seem that there is a bit more of an emphasis in many respects to playing through transition, playing through dig opportunities, and then finding a way out of out of system to scramble and stuff like that. And I think that, you know, sometimes we see players get put over on the right side in particular who maybe don't have as much mobility, maybe are still developing some of their finer tuned skills because, well, gee, I can't teach 6'5", so there you go. And we need a place for you. So, you know, we're gonna make you a disruptive presence that's going to be impacting a high volume of incoming attacks.
Yeah, like put the tall kid on her. Just put, you know what, go up there, put your hands up, try to take away space.
Yeah.
And then they just go up and do it. That's kind of how it starts out. And then they like it so much they just get really into it. Which like you said, like I would say the blocking game in the women's and girls game is a little bit more passive than the men's. It's more about taking away space and funneling into the defense because you want to score those transition points. But if you have a player like a lockdown blocker, you gotta emphasize that because it takes away a lot of the pressure off the defense and on the transition offense. If you have somebody that you put right in front of their best hitter and they put the clamps on them every time.
Yeah, and even if they're not scoring direct blocks, even if it forces the attacker across from them to alter what they want to do and where they find themselves successful, and it limits their impact on the game, to me, that's about as good as you can ask for, because I think hitters are super intelligent now. They know how to work out of suboptimal situations, and they know how to be patient and wait for the opportunity to take a big hack and find the area that they're super efficient in scoring, or find the area that the game plan calls for them to attack. So even if it means, you know, we're not taking really big swings into the 5-6 seam because this team has kind of covered it up pretty well. We need you to go and move into a 1-6 seam or really paint the line because, you know, for whatever reason. A good blocker can adjust and make that kind of a difficult situation no matter what the attackers are being asked to do. And if you're forcing a hitter, especially in 0-1, to move into off-speed shots consistently or frequently, that really gives your back row, bless you.
I'm good.
It gives your back row defenders a chance to really kickstart your offensive transition, and that starts at the net. You know, we call it level 1 in defense for a reason, because it's the first thing that's there. So, I think, for generally only being on the floor for 3 rotations a lot of times. These players can have a high impact for sure.
Yeah, so the next one on the right side is the cannon.
Yeah. So
this is just like a big, strong right side hitter. They don't get the ball a lot, but when they do, they absolutely hammer it.
Yep.
And I don't want to say it like they're a less skillful player, but it's something that a player that's not yet skillful can achieve, is being an offensive threat on the right pin with a little bit less responsibility than they would have otherwise.
Okay.
Kind of like a Clydesdale, just a big old Clydesdale.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, a fast twitch, heavy armed hitter that's going to really make the opposing outside hitters pay attention to what's going on the block can be super effective. I think we see something tells me that, these two, that lockdown blocker they kind of, I think we oftentimes, when we're looking at one and we're looking at a player who displays one of those characteristics, we're really hoping to get the other as well.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't, which is why you want to have both, or even if you run like a 6-2, you want one of your setters to be able to attack really well, and maybe the other one's better at blocking, and it kind of balances out.
Sure. I would say we do occasionally get a 6 rotation setter who just has an absolutely devious blocking game to them, which is something I think we're seeing more personally, as more physically gifted, bigger, taller, stronger athletes are coming into the space and they're developing their game. The setting position, for all of the conversation going around about, hand contact and this and that, I think we are seeing some really outstanding athletes take over the role and excel at just more than facilitating the offense. They're presenting a very physical front, and it's no longer just, throwing palm trees up in the air.
Yes, which brings us to our next one, which is the setters. I have a few different ones for this. The first one is the pocket quarterback. So, yeah, this would be highly efficient in system, runs a well-oiled offense, has fundamental traditional mechanics down, super clean hands. Not going to do anything incredibly crazy, but can run a good, solid offense.
Sure.
That's your pocket quarterback.
Yeah, your Tom Brady's. They're not gonna break any land speed records getting around the floor, but they're going to manage the game well, and they're going to put the ball where it needs to be, on time, on tempo, for whatever the situation calls for. So, I think just about any coach would take a setter like that to be able to keep the consistency level of their offense at a pretty high baseline.
Yeah, I feel like you see this more often with teams that have a rock solid defense and passing, to the point where you don't need a setter that's going to wow you every single time. You just need somebody who's going to get to target, run the offense the way it's supposed to be run, and help your teammates score points.
Yeah, I also think it depends on the type of offense you're running and how critical that is, because I think the higher tempo that you're running, the quicker, the more complex of routes that your group is running, they kind of have the ability to mentally work through some of the more advanced on the fly stuff. So, obviously every setter's calling out pre-serve attacking routes, but does your setter have a plan for, does your setter have a plan for, and are they communicating what happens when we're in system in transition?
Yes, which would be the next one, the artist.
Boom.
So this is a highly dynamic player that somehow creates incredible plays in rally, runs the offense with fluidity and the ability to improvise on the fly.
Yeah. And I think we've seen a lot of setters go through some of the high ranks of, the juniors divisions, and they get snapped up into the college game really quickly. And then, some of the best ones that we've seen throughout the years, certainly get filtered up into Team USA's pipeline. I think we can, obviously, like your Jordan Poulters, your Lauren Carlini's, your Micah Hancocks,
they
have, all of them had something that made them individually special about what they did. They all kind of have a little bit of a different, body chemistry, as everyone does. But like, Micah was a little bit smaller, but she had a disgusting jump serve with her left hand, tough, and she was always an attacking threat. Lauren and Jordan, a little taller, a little bit more physical on the net. And, I think they both have a little bit of an attacking streak to them when they want. So, but the ability to move around the court and put up the kind of set from anywhere that any hitter can make work and score with is not something that's easy to do. And so I think that's why so many coaches have valued the position, and just like a quarterback for the position in general, they really are the closest thing to like a quarterback that we have to be able to say, we're trying to get them to touch the ball on every play, and we want them to control what our offense does from all different aspects, from tempo, location, decision-making on distribution and things like that. So, I don't know if you can overvalue that role too much.
I would say not. And I have a third one here, but it's not really a full archetype. It's the contortionist. So it's those setters that can twist and turn in ways you never thought possible and somehow get their hands on the ball and put up a hittable set, like a Houdini.
I think there's a lot of that comes down to just contact frequency, like how many times they're actually touching the ball and they understand what their body can do. And then also they just have the guts to throw it. Like it's having the confidence to go out there and do something daring to try and put your team in a better position takes, one, the confidence to do it, but also like a little bit of that, like F you, like I'm just going to do it. And if it comes off, it comes off and we're successful. And if it doesn't, then I have to deal with it, So I think those players generally have a little bit of that sense of, this is my job and this is what needs to get done. And I'm going to get it done no matter what. And I'm going to make plan A work. Like, your pocket quarterback is going to run through their progression. It's like, okay, this is optimal here. This is optimal here. We have this blocking matchup here. And I feel like the contortionist is just going to be like, we need this ball here. This is where I am. This is what I need to do. And they're going to get it done.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I would say that most setters now we're seeing are throwing less or fewer of those hero balls, 40, 50 feet on scramble plays. And they're saying, okay, let's manage the game because we need to get control of this point so that we can either continue our momentum, cut momentum, whatever it is, stay close in a tight set. But yeah, no, when you see a setter that's able to do things like slide across the floor, from their knees or whatever, and throw something behind them and just dime it and make all three blockers on the other side look stupid. Like, yeah, if that doesn't get you hyped up, then I don't know what you need.
You need to be watching another sport if that doesn't get you hyped up.
I guess so.
So that was my last archetype for that one.
For the setters.
Yeah, we're on to the liberos now.
Yep.
First one, the minor.
We dig.
I was just thinking that in my head. I don't know where it came from.
Shout out Snow White.
Them seven dwarves, son.
So, I mean, I feel like this is when you describe the position, when you talk to people who recruit the position, this is what they want. They want gritty, friends with the floor, posture's terrible in real life because they're just constantly tabletopped, and they pick up whatever ball they can get, and they go for the ones even if they can't get it. I had a young lady that I coached at Syracuse, or had the opportunity to work with at Syracuse while I was there, and it didn't matter where the ball was. If it was on her half of the court, she was going to be on the floor picking it up. And I loved watching her game. She transferred to Texas A&M to finish up her career. And I don't think I've ever seen someone play the position with as much intensity and consistent intensity as she did. I mean, I know that there may be, like you've got your Morgan Henses, and she's such a really good technical defender, and she has great touch on her platform. And there's others in the space that are super terrific. Justine Wong-Arantes, same thing. So good. Stay in the pocket, just scoop it up. But those kids that make friends with the floor, and their jersey looks like a dust mop at the end of practice or at the end of a match. Yeah, you can't replace that. You can't make somebody want that. They have to want that for themselves, because it's not fun.
They're also the kid that's got ice wrapped around their knee, their elbow, their shoulder at the end of the game, because they're just not afraid to get banged up.
Yep, they're playing with their hip wrapped. It's just it comes with the territory. It comes with the territory. The attackers, they have that pounding, that they're jumping and they're landing and stuff like that. But the defenders, they have the same thing. They're throwing their whole body on the floor, which we love.
You do. So the next archetype for the liberos is the bookworm.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible ability to read the game and almost predict what's going to happen when a hitter is attacking, even before it does.
Yep.
So these kids actually really like to watch off the ball. So before the play happens, I really love to watch them kind of see the development of the play before it happens, and they just end up in the right spot and boom, dig.
Yeah, it's the position is played with the eyes. Many people will say, similar to how blockers kind of track with their eyes and they're not moving necessarily. They're trying to stay still. A lot of what we teach defenders is to read, play the game with your eyes, and then when it's time to move, make the most efficient move that you can to the ball that you need to get. And that's a hard thing to do when there's so much movement and the game is developing so fast, and you feel like, oh, I need to get ahead of this. And you try and cut something off, and then the ball goes the other way, and you're looking over there, and people are looking at you, and it doesn't feel good. So, and I think the other to take that a step further is, you can in a match, in a certain situational moment, pick up the tendencies of the attackers that you're facing and find out what they like to do, where they like to go, and then circumvent that by either shifting your defense, understanding and anticipating what's going to happen, and then follow through and make the move that you need to make to get your team into transition. So I think this archetype is becoming harder and harder to develop, just because of how fast the game is occurring, how fast setters are getting the ball out of their hands, the tempo that hitters are able to attack consistently. But with that, I think the defenders, they catch up and they adjust and they find their ways.
Yeah, every part of the game evolves. It could be speed first and then reading. This next one's kind of like, it kind of transcends that development, which is the freight train.
Oh, run through a brick wall.
Aggressive, fearless, and not afraid to dive into the score table, the stands, or run through a wall to get a ball.
Yeah, and I think you do have to be a bit of a bookworm to read this as well, because again, we've talked about it a couple times here, but with how fast the game is happening, if you aren't reading what's happening on a swing and what an attacker is trying to do and where your blocker's hands are and where things are funneling to, like you're going to have a hard time trying to catch up and react to these things. Although a lot of these descriptors are quite reactive. So you got to go and make a play over your shoulder, a little scoop. I mean, we saw that video a couple of years ago. It's probably more than a couple of years ago now, that went viral, of that kid jumping over another kid to, scoop the ball back into play, and her team goes and wins the point. I mean, that was just sports epic. That wasn't just volleyball epic, and that's I think that's the kind of stuff that as a defender you dream about being able to do. You close your eyes and, a hitter's going to say, oh, I can see myself scoring the game-winning point for the state championship or the national championship or whatever. And a setter's like, I can envision the ball getting into my hands and releasing it perfectly and having it just perfect tempo, perfect location, all this and that. And a defender is looking to make, that hero play. They're trying to track a ball down and something back in. And
I can see myself running straight into the wall after making an epic play.
Yeah, I dove over the scores table and took out the SID and, the people over there taking stats. Like it's one, and again, and I'll say that I think there are certain things within certain positions that you can't teach. You can tell people what they need to do and you can show them examples of it. But if they don't have that inner intrinsic want and desire to do it, it's going to be really hard to get them into that mode of, that's what you have to do. So I would take a team of 6 freight trains any day because I know the effort's going to be there. We might be a little bit shorter. We may not have as much talent, in the size department, but you're not going to get any free points. That's for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. So the last one I have is the acrobat. So I actually coached a couple players like this. And it's kind of like, it's that flashy, they dive, they roll, they slide, they jump, they're all over the floor, but they do it with like grace and this extreme athleticism. I used to coach a player who was a libero for us, and he would dig the ball and then just roll onto his back every single time. It's like,
roll out.
But but like some of them I don't think he really needed to. But it's kind of just his flair. It's the way he played, and he played good.
Well, that's part of the position too. Like people have to know that you're out there doing stuff. It's not just that you don't just get to wear the the libero jersey and have it be a different color than everybody else's. Like I got to show you the athleticism.
Yeah, I mean, I like this archetype because like there's players that will make an incredible play, and you'll look to where they dug the ball, and you look back and they're right back on their feet again. It's like, how do they do that? Like you were just rolling on the ground 2 seconds ago, and you're on your feet reading the play already again.
Well, because they rolled out of it. Now they're back on their feet.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. You watched more games recently than I have. Like you still see a lot of like the diving, the rolling, or is it more just like getting set on defense and just locked in and digging the ball?
I think it's situational. I think there are different techniques for different situations on what needs to happen. I think for the most part, we want everything moving forward, right? So there's this tendency to be head, shoulders, knees, toes, right? Head over shoulders, shoulders over knees, knees over toes. And so everything's kind of pitched forward anyway. So we have a tendency to like go down and dive into things and stuff like that. But we are starting to see more players go to a side reach where they'll shoot to land on their thigh and roll onto the glute, something like that. Seeing a lot of players penguin dive too. They'll get the platform down, and they'll scoop underneath the ball and kind of slide the bottom part of their forearms on the floor and really just flatten out. The rollout, I think for a while was getting a little bit of shade because of the tendency that some players were bonking their head on the roll. So I'm not sure if that one's still a really popular method to teach. But stab, sprawl, and then of course there's the knee drive, power knee drive. That I know, I think it was Coach Sheffield up at Wisconsin was teaching for a while. I would have to imagine that there's still room for the technique where you're kind of just driving that knee down to get your platform underneath the ball faster, and you're still kind of stable. So, it's at a certain point, I think most coaches would agree that technique goes out the window and the ball needs to be up in the air. And they don't ask how, they ask how many. So did you get 25? Well, we needed 26. So it's one of those things that we teach technique to be optimal. And at a certain point, you have to just run through a brick wall and get the ball. And again, you can teach all the technique you want, but the mentality of being able to say, I'm going to implement and execute, that's intrinsic. So, but that's just from my time playing defense. And I wasn't necessarily a good defender. I wanted to defend, and I wanted to give my effort to make sure that the ball didn't touch the ground. So, did it always look pretty? No. But the ball stayed off the ground.
Yes, sir.
So.
All right, we're on to the last position, the middle blocker.
Oh, last, but certainly most, not least.
Yeah, so the first one is the Lankster. So, this long, lengthy, high point of contact, maybe not as speedy, but hits above the block, so they don't need to be that fast.
Can't teach height.
No, you can't, but you can teach them how to use that height.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And I think the biggest strength here is the on the defensive side of the ball, where the taking away a lot of attacker space and angles comes into play.
Yeah, you got to use all that 6-something frame and just take away space, cut the angles down.
Yep. And
that's what they do.
Yeah, and every blocker wants to be here, wants to be up vertical, touching as high as they can. Just make the roof.
I'd rather be here over the net on top of the ball, but that'll never be because I'm short.
Make the roof.
Yeah.
If you can do this, you're going to give hitters a real problem of the time. And not only that, as a direct result, but you can make it easier on your backcourt defenders, because they will be able to funnel easier balls into their defensive assignments. So stay pressed, press from the back of your shoulder, press, block it out with your back. You block with your back.
Yes, sir.
People think you block with your arms. It's not true. You block with your back.
You don't even use your arms. They don't even exist. It's all back.
Yeah, actually, you just turn around and back block. Oh, gosh.
That's a nice stretch.
I don't know if you picked it up on the microphone, but quite a few vertebrae just cracked. So
I didn't, but now I'm jealous.
Yeah.
Speaking of cracks, the second one I have is the Firecracker. So this is that small but mighty middle blocker that's explosive with their play and athleticism, operates with speed to try and outpace the bigger blockers.
Yep.
We see it a lot in the girls and the women's game, because not everybody can be blessed with 6+ foot height.
True.
But that doesn't mean you can't be an effective middle.
Very true. Very true. Certainly like your Dana Retke, she's going to be in that Lankster category where she's just coming at you with every angle humanly possible because she's 6'8" or whatever. And, and then there are other middle blockers that come into the picture, and they may only be 6 foot, 6'1", maybe 6'2", but they have a little bit more of a balanced athleticism about them. They have a little bit more speed. They're really, really consistent in the trenches, working pin to pin. But again, I think the big thing about the middle blocker position is it's all about tempo. It's all about timing. So if you can outspeed somebody to a gap, if you can get to a location and have your attacking window open and ready on time, you can beat blocks. You can beat defenders to the floor. So, there was a young lady from, I think it was Fossil Ridge High School in Colorado. We saw them at the Nike TOC Southwest. And I think she was listed at 5'8", 5'9", playing middle blocker for them. And I sat there and watched, I think, probably 2.5 of their matches. And she was just a terror going up against middle blockers that were bigger across the board. Almost every single one of her matchups, she was undersized in comparison to. And she was scoring consistently. She's one of their top scorers on the team. And that Fossil Ridge group was really fun to watch, and she was a big part of that because, everyone loves seeing a smaller hitter go up against a bigger blocker and win and do it consistently. So
everybody loves an underdog.
We do. What's not to love? All that to say, these are just some of the things that we've noticed as trends throughout throughout our time recruiting and evaluating and covering the game. But that's not to say that if you don't fall into one of these categories, you're not going to play that position.
Yeah, and it may be that you check the boxes for multiple ones of these. You have elements of each of these.
Yeah, let's face it, I think everybody would love to have a 6 rotation setter that can, set, hit, and be deployed in different places. Maybe they're a lefty. That'd be even better, and a middle blocker that can flare out and play effectively on the edges. That's always something that coaches would love to have. So, and if you're a ball control specialist, you're a defender, being able to have a couple of other skills in your tool bag is really important. Certainly setting when you're in an out of system situation. And we know liberos, we know you can hit. But just take your cuts in hitting lines and move along, or we're good. Set and middle blockers, get out of the way. You don't have hands. Stop trying to set. We appreciate you. We love you. It ain't it. Although I should probably walk that comment back, since we're not calling doubles anymore. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, things just got a little bit easier for those middles that always dreamed of being a setter.
Oh, it's your time. You know what? I rescind. Stand in there. Don't transition. Take second ball. Take second ball every time.
Just you go to target instead of attacking, and you take the second ball.
Yeah. Send your back row setter off for a D ball, or is that red or is that blue over on that side? I can't remember.
I don't know. Everybody's got different.
I think it's red, and I think blue is your left side. Anyway, all that to say, I want to see doubles out of our middles this season, with kills and with assists. Okay, that's your mission this year. I'm gonna have every coach in the country on my back about that one.
Guys, relax. It's just a funny joke.
Who's joking?
Unless your middle's really good at setting.
Occasionally it happens. Occasionally you've got a kid in there who maybe was an outside, or maybe they were a setter before and they got converted or whatever.
Yeah, we see that a lot now, especially between club and high school, kind of bouncing back and forth between positions.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I'll say is that be receptive to whatever it is your team needs. Because that's how you'll find the floor more consistently, and you're going to start developing skills that maybe you were not quite as sound on before, and that's going to give you the opportunity to be on the floor and playing, and that's the most impactful thing that you're going to get in your training, is being able to play and figure it out on the floor in game type situations. So be open to that. I was not receptive to wanting to be transitioned into a setter my junior year of college. I came in thinking I was going to be a 6 rotation outside hitter, and I started as that. I was passing great. I wasn't making too many errors hitting. I was making a few. And then, hey, we need you to set. So there you go. And was it challenging? Yeah, yes, it was challenging. And my brain is not programmed to be a setter, because it's not how I think about the game. It's not how I was trained to see the game. But being in that role forced me to be that. And so I had to think about things a little bit differently. And in the times that I didn't, I struggled and the team struggled. But in the times that I was able to, we had a little bit of flow. We had a little bit of giddy up to us. But that season was hard for a lot of reasons. It wasn't just the fact that I was setting, but that was certainly indicative of the fact that we were in a tough spot.
Yeah, we didn't have any setters that were eligible.
No, a bunch of noonies. Although, shout out to our outside hitter, Steve Valhalla, for winning sectional championship in New Jersey with Lyndhurst High School. They just wrapped that up, I think, yesterday.
Very cool.
Go, Steve.
Shout out to the first All-American in Kane men's volleyball history.
Thank God. Can you imagine if he didn't transfer?
No, I don't even want to think about it.
Oh, we would have been so bad.
We don't know that.
Well, we would have been bad.
And you know what? We never will. We'll never know.
We won't. But thank God for Steve.
Yeah.
Remember, folks, podcast. Code word podcast for 25% off. new Prep Volleyball subscriptions. We've got a ton of the state championship salutes that are out right now that have been out. We're going to have more rolling out. Signing day is kind of taking our focus for the next day or two. But this will be out, but way before this is, that's even an issue. Or
it will. This will be out the week, not the week of Thanksgiving. Next week it'll be out.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll have quite a few of the states out. We've already got a number out already. So, and we have championship races that are coming to an end this upcoming weekend. So the 16th and next weekend are big weekends. A lot of races coming to an end. So, and then we'll be on to award seasons, which is going to be exciting.
The most wonderful time of the year.
No doubt. Is that it for today?
Man. That's it for today. Sign us off. Sign us off in the best way.
No trivia for us today?
No trivia. You're okay. Unless you want more, I can give you more trivia.
No, that was painful. Watching the clips back made me sad.
I mean, some of them were really tough.
Some of them were tough. You were a good quiz master.
That's just how my brain works. I'm always asking questions, even if I don't know the answers. Then I look up the answers, and then I know the answers.
Got to. That's how you learn.
Yes, sir.
That's it. Well, folks, until next time, be good to everybody.
Peace. Balloons. We out.